No, no, this is not the time to look at your portraits. Maybe keep it for the end.
Sir, just once.
Please don't disturb the workshop. Maybe we can do it later.
Yeah, I did not get the name. Whoever was that? So we will give you your time. Do not worry. We would love to see your work. Just give us some time. We will surely see it. Thank you.
Don't stop the flow. If you have questions, please raise it in the chat bar, and Suhina will take up your questions. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I hope you all will understand, because the flow would be disturbed, and it's like, there are almost 60 to 70 participants. Thank you. So the colors which I use is from Daniel Smith and Michelo Mission, Winsor and Newton, Camel, and what? These are the tubes, Sennelier. I use various different brands. I don't use particular brand because it doesn't suit me. All the colors doesn't suit my portrait works. So I use different brands. And also sometimes I use these cakes and pans which are available in the market separately. And some, like, this one I recently bought it, Faber-Castell, which is excellent for floral work, because it gives you bright colors. Bright means, like, when you have flowers, you need bright colors. So Faber-Castell is good in using for floral work. For portraits, I have shown you. And the brushes. We have another brand also. It's an Indian brand called Avani. Avani is a NGO which makes these beautiful colors. These are all plant-based colors. They are not chemical-based, but these are plants and extracted from mostly the minerals and also flowers and plants. So these are also beautiful. These are harmless. Nowadays, I mix both of these and make the portraits. Coming to brushes, guys, for large strokes, I use big brush, very big brush. This is how much? 2-inch brush. And mostly I use these Chinese brushes, which are all available in Amazon. You can order directly from Amazon. These are the Chinese and Korean brushes which I use for portrait making, and these are for fine details, where one number and 3 numbers, like the big ones. If you are working on architecture, this sort of brushes are mostly used. They have a cut, and this cut can be used for aligning your straight lines and all. Otherwise, if you work with the mop brushes, you won't get the straight lines. So we have different brushes in the market available. It's up to you, whatever you want, you can choose. And there are synthetic brushes, there are natural hair brushes. The natural hair brushes are banned in production in India. But, from the other countries, China and Nepal, they bring it here and sell it. So this is one more brand brush. It is called Art Essentials. These brushes are also very good, very good. These are again Chinese brushes. Mostly I use Chinese brushes because it gives a very good flow and it holds a lot of water and it's very smooth. Coming back to the papers, I use Arches, I use Fabriano, but for my sort of portraits, I use this brand called Mona Lisa. Mona Lisa is very beautiful for my type of portraits. So I use Mona Lisa because it has a very thin grain on the paper. That is very beautiful when you apply 3 to 4 layers of watercolor. You can use, Indian paper, Chitrapat, for initially for beginners, but later slowly you have to switch on to high quality papers also. So these were about the materials, and I will show you this entire demonstration in watercolor today. But otherwise, if you are all interested in different mediums, you can all pursue with different mediums. Like, people are constantly showing with pencils, charcoals and all. They are all fine. Only thing is, how do you bring the expressive mood into the portraits? That is more important. How do you bring the tonal quality? How do you bring the background? How do you make the portrait very expressive? That is more important rather than drawing a portrait or using any medium to portrait. How do you express it? That is very important for an artist. So beginning, I'll do with the head study. Portrait means head study, study of the head, and also up to an extent of shoulder. So when we talk about the head is divided into 9 parts. 9 parts. 1, 2, and 3. These are 3 parts. And again, I will divide it into 3 parts. These are the proportions. These are the minimum things which an artist should understand and should know. So in the first, second, and third. In the second, you will have ears and your nose. This is called hairline. This is called eye line. This is called nose line, and this is chin line. So these 9 boxes, the entire game of portrait making is in these 9 boxes from the front side. Remember these proportions. Entire the portrait making is only divided is based on this grid. So if you look at your end of the nose, this will go and merge with the beginning of your eye. It should actually. And the lip line, the ends of the lips will go and bisect to the eyeball, mid of the eyeball. These are the proportions, and apart from this proportion, I have one more other proportion. That is profile. The front 9 and this profile. The nose is almost equal to the ear. This is the proportion. This is a basic proportion. And now that the nature has made every human being different, that means he has only worked on these proportions. The nature has worked on only these proportions, making slight differences. Just 1 mm, 1 centimeter, 1 centimeter, 1 mm is also a huge difference in your portrait. So if you look at, everyone has the same features, but only the distance matters. So you need to, as an artist, you need to understand exactly the proportions and what is the distance between all these components. All these components. Suppose someone has smaller lips, they might have a bigger nose. Some might, like if you go to the mountain region, they have smaller eyes. When you come to southern region, they have bigger eyes. So some people have small forehead, someone have large forehead. Someone has big ears, someone has small ears. So you have to understand the features. To understand the features, my only formula is 80%. You have to observe the subject. Don't rush. Don't jump into taking pencil and working on. 80% of your work should be dependent on your observation 20% only you will do drawing, painting and all. That means your entire effort is based on 80% of your observation. Don't rush up. Take patience, because portrait making is a highly patience work. If you keep patience, your portrait would be nice. Otherwise, you would be lose interest because your proportions will not come nice. I hope you are all okay with this. Sometimes what happens, like in this portrait, the one which we did it yesterday, 3 days ago, when someone is looking down, the proportion changes. Like here, when someone is looking down, the hairline and the eye line will be larger in size, whereas the nose line and the chin line would be very small when someone is looking down. When someone is looking straight, you will have these all proportions correct. But when someone is looking up, suppose, then their chin line and nose line will become bigger, and the headline and the hairline, the eye line and the hairline will become smaller. So you need to understand, how these proportions are working out. And that's it. If you are all very well versed with these proportions, you are absolutely on the way to make portraits. So portrait is mostly of, as I said, it is about head and shoulder, not full body. Mostly when you keep your hands near to your shoulder or to the chest, that can be considered as a portrait, or up to bust level. But if you go beyond bust level, beyond your waist level, then it is not, it is a figurative work. It is not at all a portrait work. I don't say it as a portrait, it's mostly a figurative work. If you are doing someone standing or sitting, full length body work, then that is not a portrait work. So how to bring the expressions in the portraits? How to capture expression means you have to see the feelings, whether he is sad, what is his mood, whether he is happy, whether he is angry, whether he is subtle, whether he is out of thoughts, or he is in deep concentration. So those sort of expressive characters and features you have to catch. Portrait making is mostly about catching the character and the personality. You can do n number of portraits, but unless you don't try to get this personality and character, it would not look nice. It would be very simple, sketch or drawing. Someone is showing on the screen for a long time. That's what I'm saying. Try to understand what I'm saying. Try to capture the character and personality. And to do that, you need to bring the feelings. You need to understand the anatomy of the face. My suggestion would be, if you are very serious in portrait painting, then sit with the subject, try to understand, see them, observe them, and go with a sort of research work on the subject. Like what are the specifications of the nose, head, lips. You do all research about an individual, talk to them, interact with them, and then only go for portrait making. Then you see your portraits are so different. It looks amazing. And to bring that onto the paper or the canvas, you need to work on their skin tones, the colors. You have to catch their mood, movement, how do they sit, where do they see, and what sort of texture you are giving, what color you are using, or what is the time, when are you capturing him, whether it's in the daylight or in a studio or in an artificial setup of the lights. So all these things matters in a portrait photography. I mean photography also, and also in painting also, it's the same. So try to do some uncommon subjects. Don't do common subjects, uncommon subjects. select a portrait in such a way that it is really very different. Even in any individual, you have to see how he is different from others. So what I'll do is, I will not go much about into theory. Let's go into practice session, because it takes actually time and it needs a lot of effort to bring in that onto the paper. I'll go back. See, this is a sort of a portrait I have already sketched for you. So this is what I'm going to demonstrate today. This is not only portrait, but the full portrait is like this. He is holding something in, the mala in hands. He is a Buddhist preacher and a monk. So it's a big portrait actually. But I would concentrate more on the face. We have less time, so I need to rush a little bit. Okay, what we do initially in watercolor is, we just wet the surface. That is called wet in wet technique. We take the large brush and wherever, generally we do the entire sheet, but because this is a big portrait, so I will just stick on to the face one. If there are any questions, please go ahead and ask me. Generally, in Indian context or in South Asia, our skin tones are little darker in comparison to Pacific, Middle East, or in Western people. Ours are more darker. So the skin tone which I use is, I use burnt sienna. For first layer, I use burnt sienna. And Camel produces the best burnt sienna. The best skin tone you will achieve is to have your first layer burnt sienna. I am using Mona Lisa paper. This paper is very much suitable for my portraits, so that's why I'm using Mona Lisa. It is 270 GSM, but I prefer 300 GSM as minimum for portrait making, because otherwise there would be no control. For watercolor, we need a lot of control. So control will come only when you have a very good paper. Otherwise, it will fold like this. The beauty of this paper is, even though if it folds, it goes back to the same, what portion of the face. You can start from anywhere. Mostly, you do it from your, forehead. You apply an entire layer of burnt sienna. And then we use, generally I use raw umber for darker skin to bring the shadows. This is a very basic and the starting layer. It will bloat, so you need to understand how much it is actually spreading before even you start putting your final tones. So for me, this is the first layer. That means I would be going for at least 6-7 layers. So I'm just keeping these highlights ready for me, because these pencil lines will go. Let me look at your questions. See, Garima, what happens is your question of about understanding how to sure about the measurements, especially the eyes, nose, and lips. You need to practice these 3 to 4 elements separately: eyes, nose, and lips, and all. And once you have command over these individual elements, then it is easy for you to club them. But there are no proportions defined anywhere in the world. You, as an artist, it is your job to understand the proportions. The basic things which I have given you is that 80% of people will have the same features, but otherwise something is less or something is more that you have to define by yourself, and that is what your observation lies for. So it is not that someone has already derived. Artist has to derive his own proportions when he look at the subject. The colors which I am using is for the skin. The first layer I have used burnt sienna. This one is rose, pink, and you can say crimson lake. In camel, we call it as crimson lake, and raw amber for darker tones. I'm slowly developing it. I'm just putting one layer and one layer upon each other. Slowly, I will do that. It looks very childish in the beginning, but when you go to third or fourth stage of layering process, then you will see how beautiful this entire process is. Because it is not yet dry, so I am just giving the outlines, just to give the wet sort of feeling. This is indigo. I am using it for the glasses, glass frame. Though I will change it to later with much darker tone, but for the moment I am giving it so that I understand where are my proportions, where is the glass sitting and all. How to draw live portrait? The answer is the question. You have to select a person or an individual if he is willing, and then you make a deal with him to sit for an hour. Try start with your friends or your family members. That's how I did it. I used to ask my family members to sit for me, and I would be making their portraits. So 80 to 90% if you achieve like their characters and all, that is enough. You are almost successful. And don't try to draw realistic like you have it in photograph. Don't take it any references from Google. Start working with people directly. Otherwise, you will be always be crippled with taking the help of web. So try mostly not to take references from the web. Only references which I take is just only birds or animals which are not available for me. Like I cannot go to forest. I cannot bring their photographs and all. In that case only I go and get the help from web on only animals and birds, or if there is any specific architecture which I want to use, then I use them. Otherwise, you don't need actually. This video clip, I don't know. Suhina will answer this answer. I don't know about that, whether this video is available.
Actually, guys, we do not provide recordings for the workshops. So, yeah.
I think, if you join the course and then that.
Yes, absolutely. For the master classes, we do have that facility, but for our workshops, we do not.
It's a lifetime access, actually.
Correct, yeah.
You won't believe, guys, for the last 5 days, we are having this beautiful session of 1 hour, and I have finished 5 portraits. That means 5 works. Amazing to see that within 5 days I have finished 5 beautiful portraits. So I would be happy if you people concentrate and work hard. Let the wet portion, let it get dry. I will focus on other area of my interest, that is the shoulders and what sort of. This is dry technique. I didn't wet the paper. I'm just trying to apply the color directly. See how different it is. Paper tries to hold your brush. Wet technique is a very famous and very tedious. Not tedious, I say, but it has to be very carefully done. Wet technique. Don't draw any details. Don't draw, just broad strokes. See there are very minimum lines I have used. I have used even these lines because only to show you. Otherwise, for my work, I will never do so much detailing of work. Keep it loose as much as possible. Don't go into every detail, every hair. If you have like millions of hairs, are you going to do that? It's really tough. You need, as an artist, you need to express, not copy the nature. You're not going to copy it fully. You just leave it. You take whatever is important.
Guys, if you're asking about the course details, I will be talking about that at the end, all right? So please be with us. He will take another 15-20 minutes of time. Once he finishes his work, I will move on to the explanation.
My suggestion to participants is if they are serious in working on portraits, they can, I won't ask much, but I will ask a month, that too only 2 days a week. And within a month, they can be really on a very good level, to understand portraits and to start work with portrait making. And do not depend on web and all, but you just expedite your learning process through a mentor. That would be much beneficial. Otherwise, you will be, the learning has to be structured. That is more important. If you have structure in place, then learning goes very fast, and you can save at least 5 years in learning the same, whatever it is. You can save at least 4 to 5 years. Otherwise, you would be just doing it by yourself, and you will not get any help. Better you have a mentor and do it fast. Colors, my friend, I have used the same. One is the orange, which I am using. Orange is called cadmium red from Winsor and Newton, and indigo from Camel, and this is crimson lake from Camel. This is just first layer, and I'm sure by third or fourth layer you will see a professional work coming out. Generally, what happens with Indian artists is they indulge in just taking the color and just applying it. They don't mix it. They don't work with the colors. That is what the difference between Western art and Indian art. Our paintings are very bright in nature in comparison to Western, because they use very dead colors. We use very light colors. We can correct mistakes in watercolors. We can correct. Actually, there is a wrong myth, or there is a wrong notion of thinking. People that once you make a stroke, then you can never actually go back. But that is wrong. But if you are a master, if you are learning it, you know how to do it. Actually, generally, many of my portraits first I distort them and then I correct them. Yes. Now I'll go to start working on the dry area again. I will use burnt umber. Let's see whether it is bloating or not. Let it dry first. Don't apply color when it is wet, unless you don't have command over it. Guys, these are again basic strokes. If you want to work on different layers, the general timing is there is nothing called timing. One layer, if it is dry, then you go on to the next one. Or otherwise, if you have command and if you want to merge two or three shades of color, then you use the wet technique whenever the color is wet or the paper is wet, you use it. Now that my sheet is little bit uh, dry, so I am just showing you, how to highlight the details. Only I'm just trying to give some impression. I am not drawing every eyebrow here. You don't need to actually. I'm just trying to put the darker areas with raw umber. Still, I'm highlighting. I didn't get into the shading part. How do you how do you start shading? Shading depends on the lighting. Where is the light falling on this face? You need to understand that if you are throwing light from your right side, suppose, then this part would be much brighter than this part. This would have shadow, and this would have the lighter part, lighter area. But if I'm throwing light from left side, so right side would be darker. So you need to understand whether it's pencil drawing. Someone was showing pencil drawings. Tanu, my advice is just to understand the light, where it is coming from, and then only do the pencil sketching. Give broad strokes. You don't need to be very detailed in detail. For the first and third layers, in between first and third layers, don't go into too much details. Just broad strokes. The key areas. Because the portrait is smaller in size, that's why I have to use a smaller brush, 1 number. Otherwise, I'll use the big one. If it is a big portrait. The beauty of watercolor is, it spills. And in other form of mediums, pencil, charcoal, and all, it is artist who makes this effort to bring the character to life. But in watercolor, what happens is, paper will not listen to you. Paper will have its own way of handling the pigment, handling the color, handling the brush, handling the entire tonal variation range. Everything paper is also working with you. So 50% of work is done by paper, 50% by artist. So it has to be a combination of two things working together, and then only you will see a final output. That is the beauty of watercolor. It's transparent medium, but nobody will say you that it is paper is also working with, and you need to have control on the paper. That is the beauty of water. It will not listen to you. The paper will never listen to you. You have to listen to paper and see how your paper behaves and how it is changing the tones and textures. You won't believe, guys, your portrait will change for 2 days. 2 days, I'm telling you. You apply color, pigment, everything, but still for next 2 days, it would be having its own slow changes happening inside the paper. That's the beauty of watercolor. If you want to make it tight, like this, what I'm doing now, you can do it. But if you want to make it loose, you can still you can keep, the painting very loose. Some parts should be loose, some parts should be tight. It all depends on the artist and his experience of work with the medium. So if you work with the medium for more than 10 to 15 years, you will understand better how it works. So probably until here you can just keep it tight, and you can keep the frame loose. It's up to you. On moving to new layer, should we again wet the paper? Don't wet the paper. Wherever the area where you are working, only wet that area and use moisturizing bottle you have, you get it, use that moisture of using that bottle. Don't wet with the brush and all. Otherwise, the painting would go here and there, and you will tear the tissues from the paper, and it gets disturbed. Multicolor portraits. This is a multicolor portrait. You can use any color. If you are doing realistic work, then you use realistic colors. If you are not using realistic, you want to keep it more abstract, then use different colors. There is nothing wrong. Someone was asking, during the drawing, should we draw all the minor details like wrinkles on the face, dimples, eyelashes? No, those things are very important, because those are the individual's very specific nature drawn lines on the faces. If they have dimples, everyone doesn't have dimples. Very few will have. So use that as an opportunity. Bring, if you want to bring an expression, use their whatever details they have, but don't do it over. Capture, try to capture minimum things, but your portrait should be effective. Suppose you add wrinkle here. If you don't like it, remove it. Many times I do. Sometimes I do overwork, then I remove it also. So taking out whatever is not required, taking out is also an art. You don't need to put everything together inside. Like I am putting the wrinkles now here. I just keep 2 or 3, but I don't do very small ones. The major ones I am putting it. The smaller ones you don't need. Are portraits always done in watercolors? No, you can use with any medium. Any medium. You can use pencil, charcoal. See, pencil and charcoal, the problem with them is they look more like a drawing rather than a full painting. So the value of a drawing and charcoal are very less in the market in comparison to other media. That's why artists, big artists, they don't do it. They do it for fun. But when it is a commission work, when someone is asking you to do certain portraits, you would definitely better choose, watercolors, oils, and all, because they have good market. That means if I do the same pencil commission work, that might fetch me only 10 to 15,000. But if I go with watercolors, I might ask for 50,000. Same subject. If I go beyond that, like for oils and all, you can ask for go for 1 lakh sort of. It depends on the size of the painting. Because for a hobby it is fine, but when you want to be professional, then you need to also work on what medium should I use. And also selection of the subject. How do you select an individual? Suppose someone is asking to do a portrait. So sit with them, do photography with them, or make a live portraits are very rare, and you should try to engage subject lively. They also learn the process and they see how much effort you actually keep in doing a portrait, and they value it. Otherwise, if you do it in the studio and then you just show them the output, they might not know what process you might have gone through, and what measures you have taken, how did you draw it, and all these things. And try to avoid this line drawing. The way I am drawing, these are all line drawings. So what I'll do is I will merge in the tones later. I'll merge them into the tones, except these lines formed on the face. Apart from that, all these lines would be merged into one and other. All. So don't do this line drawing. Any rule to follow for the face? I don't see anything. This face I can do it with blue, black, anything. It's up to you which color you want to do. Important is bringing the expression and tonal values, whatever the color you use. You can use any color. The one which we are doing now is a very big portrait. Actually, it takes a lot of time. I'm just showing you the basics. Tomorrow in the chat box, you will see the final painting, how beautiful it looks. It will be ready for sale. Sit with your grandparents, parents, ask them to sit for half an hour and all. Just try to sketch them. That's how I used to do it even in my early years of learning. During my schooling and all, I used to ask someone to sit. And live portrait is really challenging, very, very challenging. You can do landscape, you can see seascape, you can do urban and all those things very easily. Even if there are proportions are out, people won't mind it. But if your portrait is out of proportions and all, you will get really very, very bad name. Though you are a very good artist, if you are doing a live portrait and if your proportions are not correct, then it will be very embarrassing moment for you. You will lose everything in one go. So better you be cautious in understanding the proportions and just watch. Have patience and just watch the subject very carefully and see. At least you should bring to 80 to 90% of his characters. The other 10% people don't mind. 80% at least you should be successful. Then fine. Guys, this is the first layer of burn sienna I have put. I will apply another layer actually. See now, you can go about the class and